Welcome to Telling Tall Tales the Right Way. I am your host, Heather Asiambi. I am the editor of several bestsellers, adult nonfiction bestsellers, as well as dozens and dozens of children's books. I come by my experience. Honestly, I have been almost a lifelong journalist, like adulthood, lifelong journalist, an editor, a content marketer, and a PR professional. Now, I might have been doing those things all at the same time, depending on like what my day job was and what my freelance gig was doing. But in any case, I am really passionate about storytelling because I think stories are how we connect the best to each other and to the world around us. I also think that stories allow us to meet people we would never meet and go places we would never go, right? And explore imaginations that create worlds we would never think to create for ourselves. Okay. So, world building is one of the most important aspects of storytelling, and every great story has some type of world building, whether that is if you're like, I am currently binging Suits on Netflix. I think I'm on season 8. Oh, I only have like what? I'm almost at the end. Okay. Anyway, I'm binging Suits on Netflix. Now that entire series takes place in New York. So it's very grounded in like our modern world. They have phones, electricity, regular cars, right? The laws as we know them, right? I mean, it's fantastical, right? The way they get around things. But the world of Suits is grounded in the reality that most of us are aware of today. And then you have stories like Harry Potter, which is what we're going to talk about today, where you have parallel worlds. You have the Muggle world, which is non-magical folks, right? And how that has phones and electricity and planes, trains, and automobiles and all that sort of thing. And then you have the wizarding world that exists parallel to the Muggle world. And while the wizarding world is mostly aware of what goes on with like regular human beings, they don't require electricity because they can go with their wand, they can say Lumos and like things light up. Or Wingardium Leviosa. I think but it makes like things levitate and you can move things around, right? So they have a different set of rules for the wizarding world they live in, even as it exists parallel to the one that we would recognize as our own. And so what we're going to talk about today is the world that J.K. Rowling built for Harry Potter and some of the rules that exist in that world. Okay. So, rule number 1, even children born to non-magical parents, which would be Hermione, can be born magical. It's kind of a crapshoot, right? It's just the way genetics work. Maybe she has a witch or a wizard somewhere in her ancestry. We never find out, and it honestly doesn't matter. Rule number 2, even children born to 2 wizarding parents can be born without powers. They're called squibs. I just forgot his name that fast. The caretaker of Hogwarts. He and his cat. He's a squib. His parents are magical. He does not have powers. And they are typically bullied and looked down on by the rest of the wizarding world society. Okay. So there's a lot of parallels into how that works. Okay. Rule number 3. When magical children reach the age of 10, they are sent to a school of witchcraft and wizardry. Okay. So in Great Britain, it's Hogwarts. In France, it's a different one. Russia has their own. I assume the US has one too, but it's never really talked about very much. And that is a boarding school where these kids live until they are 17 years old. Now, just like any school, there are rules to, rules of conduct. They have meal times, they have uniforms. There are very strict rules about how, when, and where they can use their magic. because you can't have these like inexperienced witches and wizards just running all over the place, like setting crap on fire and blowing things up or moving things from space, right? Like that's chaos. So they have like their own political system, their own laws, their own it's not really a police force, but they have people who enforce things. There's even a prison that is very terrifying called Azkaban, where, so anyway, there's this whole world that has been constructed with rules for the world of the wizarding world of Harry Potter, right? And so we start out. There's also, well, let me go back. There's also a huge conflict that's like an umbrella over the entire series. There are 7 books and 8 movies, because book 7 is unwieldy. And it took 2 movies to tell this one. We'll get into that in a minute. But anyway, so big conflict. Voldemort, he who shall not be named, is a dark wizard who hates muggles, which is interesting because he has like one of his parents is a muggle, right? Non-magical. And he's like super duper evil, and he wants to take over the wizarding world and eventually like have dominion over the muggle world as well. And so that's a whole arching conflict over the entire series. Now, what we learn is that there was a prophecy. Prophecy is big in the wizarding world. There is a prophecy that a child born on July 31st is going to be the ruin of Voldemort. Okay? He freaks out. And goes after the 2 wizarding babies he knows that are born on July 31st. The first one, Neville Longbottom, who becomes a friend of Harry's. Voldemort kills his parents, and Neville is raised by his grandmother. Voldemort goes to kill Harry. Harry's mother steps in front of him, to take the blow to protect her child because he's just a baby, steps in front of him, and the force of a mother's love zings Voldemort's killing curse back to him, leaving Harry with a lightning bolt scar on his forehead and an interesting ability to understand snakes. He can communicate with snakes, which is often seen as the mark of a dark wizard, which is why the House of Slytherin at Hogwarts is marked by a snake, and Harry does not want to go to Slytherin. Let me rephrase. Yes. So when the kids go to Hogwarts, there's a sorting hat. It's like, it talks, right? It sits on the kid's head and can kind of read the kid's thoughts and its kids' emotions and genealogy, I would guess, to a certain degree, and then decides what house they're going to go into. So it's like teams, right? So we have Gryffindor, Hufflepuff, Ravenclaw, and Slytherin. Slytherin is considered like the dark wizard house. And so when Harry sits under the hat, he's like, please not Slytherin, please not Slytherin, please not Slytherin. And so the sorting hat sends him to Gryffindor with 2 other kids who turn out to be his best friends, Ron Weasley and Hermione Granger. Hermione of the aforementioned Muggle parents. Anyway, so Harry, after Voldemort's killing curse first of all, kills Harry's mother, but her love and her sacrifice for her child is like a shield around Harry and bounces the killing curse back to Voldemort, which reduces him basically to, I don't know, he's not really even a spirit. He's like, I don't know how to describe him. It's kind of slimy and ooky. You know what he reminds me of? You've seen the pictures of baby pandas or kangaroos, how they're born and then they have to like crawl up to their mother's pouch. That's kind of what Voldemort looks like, right? He's like a parasite almost, right? Anyway, what we come to find out is that Voldemort learned some really dark, horrible magic that allowed him immortality, sort of, by splitting his soul into 7 pieces. Okay. So, like, he took his soul out, diced it up into 7 pieces, and pieces of his soul, like, he hides them in objects. Okay. Now, the only way to kill a piece of Voldemort's soul to keep him from regaining strength and carrying out with his nefarious plans is to destroy these objects, which are called Horcruxes. Truthfully, I did not look up the word Horcrux to see if it's like a made-up word or if it has like some etymological like root or whatever. I didn't care that much. I thought it was it's one of those words that's like a mouthful and it feels wrong. So it feels like, to me, it seems like it applies well to these vessels that Voldemort has chosen for whatever slice of his soul has put in there, right? So what we learn is that these Horcruxes, these vessels for Voldemort's soul, when they are destroyed, that piece of his soul dies, which keeps him from regaining his full strength. Okay, so the Sorcerer's Stone was one of them. That's the first book, and Harry gets that destroyed. The second one is the Chamber of Secrets, which holds a diary that was Voldemort's when he was a student, and that gets destroyed. So that's 2 Horcruxes gone. But we don't know that actually until like book 6 or 7. This is where I kind of have an issue. The Horcruxes, I don't really, I mean, that's fine. But what we come to learn, and maybe you've seen this coming the whole time I've been talking, but Harry is the 7th Horcrux for Voldemort's soul. When Voldemort cast the killing curse, somehow the last piece of his soul got transferred into Harry, and Harry becomes a Horcrux for Voldemort, which explains why Harry can speak to snakes, which is considered the mark of a dark wizard, right? So, and Voldemort can be in his thoughts too, and Harry can be in his thoughts. So they have a very parasitic, symbiotic relationship. So Harry is a Horcrux for Voldemort. Okay, so now we're at book 7, Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows. I have a couple of problems with this book. I'm not going to lie, I probably read it like 3 or 4 times. I have read all the Harry Potter books multiple times. And true story, we were living in the suburbs of Chicago. I had to take the train, the Blue Line, downtown to where I worked. So I would get on at the Cumberland station and take the train down to, I think it was Dearborn. No, was it? Doesn't matter. Anyway, I'd get off and walk a few blocks to work. Done. Reading book 2. I'm on the train. This is true story. True story. Here's me. La la, I'm reading my book. Just reading. I look up, and lo and behold, I have gone like 5 or 6 stops past my stop. I'm late for work, like really late for work now. Because then I had to get off the train, cross over to the tracks going the other way back to where I needed to be. And then I had to hightail it from the train to work. Now, luckily, I wasn't really in any trouble. I was always on time. And so for me to be late, people were like, oh my God, is everything okay? Are you all right? I held up the book and I said, I got a little caught up. And they actually all sighed with relief. We understand. And the day went on. But seriously, who like just reading my book, reading my book, and I missed my stop? Oh my goodness gracious. Anyway, okay. Now we're at book 7. Book 7. The first half of the book so let's just say this much of it, right? This much of it is taken up because Dumbledore has died. Snape killed him. And he has put Hermione, Ron, and Harry on this quest to find these objects that they need to overcome Voldemort. Now, given the high stakes, this isn't like a scavenger hunt. I find it difficult, if not impossible, to believe that Dumbledore, like, why would he be so cryptic in his instructions to them, right? That's number one problem, but that's not the point of this episode. We know Harry is a Horcrux and that he has a piece of Voldemort's soul. Okay? Why then, when he dies, does Voldemort not also die? But this is what I think. As the series goes on, it gets darker and darker and darker. The tone gets darker. The style of J.K. Rowling's writing gets darker. The thoughts and emotions and actions of our primary characters get shady and shadier. There are still really good moments of like levity and there's laughter and friendship and love and all of those sorts of things. Yes. But for the most part, this is a dark tale. So what I think is that J.K. Rowling meant from the very beginning. Now, I purposely also did not do any like Reddit thread searching or book reviews or anything. I did nothing because this book came out. Hold on, let me remember. This book came out, oh wow, 2007. Oh my God, has it really been that long? That's crazy. Okay, anyway, sorry, I didn't realize that. So I purposely did not go searching for anything about this because I want this purely to be what I think. So what I think is J.K. Rowling always meant for Harry and Voldemort to die because one cannot live without the other. Once Voldemort put that killing curse and it bounded back at him the way it did because of Lily Potter's love for her son and the way Harry absorbed that final piece of Voldemort's soul. You know, he's got the scar and he can talk to snakes and they have this like psychic connection. That meant that Harry was marked for death. And at some point, he and Voldemort were gonna have to go head to head, which they do in this book. But only Harry lives. And it took some writing gymnastics, I think, to pull it off even half convincingly. So here's, again, it's kind of following what I said about Where the Crawdads Sing, right? That I don't know, honestly, if Delia Owens ever meant for that last chapter of the book to actually happen, which kind of ties everything up in this nice, neat bow, right? So, but my guess is based on the darkening tenor and tone of the Harry Potter series. I think that J.K. Rowling always meant for there to be a battle, but that Harry and Voldemort would both die. But because Harry Potter is one of like our most beloved literary heroes now, the publishers were like, yo, no, like, no. Whatever you got to do, you got to take the last like third of this book and rewrite it so that Harry lives. Make it as believable as you can. Readers are going to buy it no matter what. Get it done. But this is where the carefully constructed rules, the rules that have been well established, I guess you could call it canon, right? Like Harry Potter canon. these well-established rules just kind of went right out the window. Like, whatever, screw the rules. We don't care. Harry Potter can't die. I'm sorry, what? Why? Why can't Harry Potter die? It makes perfect sense for him to die. He is a Horcrux for Voldemort's soul. If Harry dies, Voldemort's soul dies. That's number 7. They can't live. They can only live if each other lives, and that's it. They can't both, one can't live when one dies. They're either both alive or they are both dead. And that is the way the series was constructed. And so by Harry living at the end, even though I do have to give it to J.K. Rowling, she really did write the end of the series to make as much sense as possible, despite the fact that she was breaking her own rules, right? So that's just my own pet peeve. Does it take away my love for the whole series? Of course not. I told you. I read this book probably 3 or 4 times. I've read them all 3 or 4 times because there's always something new that I find. Like here's a good example. Book 3, Harry Potter and the Prisoner of Azkaban, is probably my favorite book of the series, because Harry has thought himself an orphan his whole life, and it turns out his father's best friend, Sirius Black, was supposed to raise him, but Sirius has been in Azkaban for some trumped up crap charges, right? That was probably my favorite book of the series. But the movie kind of I don't really like it. Book 2, on the other hand, Harry Potter and the Chamber of Secrets, probably my least favorite book, honestly. They did a phenomenal job with that movie, though. It's facts, right? Like, just kind of depends on how you see it in your head. But for me, that's the truth of it. But anyway, okay, book 7. Just getting back to it. I really do think the publishers forced J.K. Rowling to change the end of this book to break her own rules so that Harry didn't die and people all over the world didn't lose their minds. That's my suspicion. I am not going to go look it up because, honestly, I am comfortable in making that declaration for myself. So, on that note, what did you think about it? Do you think Harry was always meant to die and that J.K. Rowling was forced to change the end? Are you okay with the end? What ending would you have given it if it were up to you? Let me know in the comments, because I really want to know. Like, for real, I really want to know. All right. So thank you for joining me. This has been Telling Tall Tales the Right Way. I am your host, Heather Asianvi. And when we get together next time, we are going to discuss, I think we're going to talk about Stranger Things. No, is that right? No. Game of Thrones. Sorry. Getting my fantasy things mixed up here. Okay, we're going to talk about Game of Thrones, but only one aspect in particular. I know there's been many words written and many words spoken about how seasons 7 and 8 totally just, right? But we're going to talk about one thing in particular. Just one thing. Okay, so that's today, or that'll be next time. Today was Harry Potter Book 7 and how J.K. Rowling broke the rules of her own world as it pertained to Horcruxes and Voldemort's soul. I definitely want to know what you think. So I will see you next time. Thank you so much for joining me, and I hope you're having a great day, evening, afternoon, wherever you are. Bye.